Hello, everybody. The football experience is back. Caleb, where do we begin?
Oh, come on. We know where you're. You know where you're going to begin, but it's good because I want to begin there as well, but probably for different reasons.
That's fine. Look,
But I don't want to take any shine off it, so I want to let you begin to start with.
well, I'm going to start with a little bit of bad news in regards to it. So, in regards to my viewing experience. So, for those who follow the pod and follow the football experience, ages ago I said that I have a TV over internet, so I pay $10 a month or something, and I get all 140 channels and whatnot. So I don't need to use the antenna, the building antenna, right? But it turns out it's 15-20 seconds behind antenna TV, because obviously they need to capture the broadcast and they need to send the broadcast over. So it's nothing to do with internet connection. It's the fact that they have to send out, they have to basically rebroadcast it. It's never been a problem until the Croatia-Brazil game, where I heard celebrating 10-15 seconds before the goal goes in, and I'm just for fuck's sake. Oh my god!
It's good,
I just heard
it's a good spoiler.
It's not, because I just heard these people yelling. I'm oh, for fuck's sake! I know what happens now. No one's gonna be yelling like that if Brazil score. There's no it's just not happening.
Exactly. So it's good. It's good noise.
No, but it ruined it because I was just cool, good goal, yeah. Literally emotionless, just awesome, cool. And then it comes onto the penalties. Obviously, I hear screaming for Rodrigo's miss, or yelling or whatnot from one of the apartments that's nearby. I'm for fuck, all right, he misses. I know he's missing. So for the rest of the penalty shootout, I literally put my fingers on the earlobe just to close the eardrums or whatever. And I had to be going la 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 for the whole penalty shootout to not ruin it for me whatsoever. So that was my little experience. But yeah, I'm really annoyed about the goal because Tiffany was at work, my girlfriend. I don't know if I've mentioned her by name before or not, but anyway, name drop.
Times. You're right.
I don't know. I can't remember. I was just saying my missus. Anyway, so she was at work watching it, and obviously her work has security cameras, and she sent me footage of she managed to get a recording of her. I'm oh man, I should have had that moment. I didn't have that moment, being stunned by by the goal, because I already knew what had happened. So yeah, that's my experience in regards to that.
Stunned is the right word, and we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
My God.
But in regards to the game as a whole, now we'll get into the analytics, I suppose. Now that we're away from,
We don't have to. We could get into I guess the feeling was taken away a little bit for you, but still the overall feeling is Croatia just beat Brazil. And I'm going to touch on a point when I talk about it a bit. But yeah, I just wanted to get the feeling, and then we can do the analytics and whatnot, because that's a big...
I know. Well, now there's this feeling that they're bringing out all these stats and things like that. I think Brazil have more registered footballers than Croatia does population. And then
whenever Croatia go deep, and they always do, because if they get out of the group stage, they go to the semis at least.
No,
but whenever that happens. Yeah, but the stat is whenever they get out of it. Yeah, whenever they get out of the group, it's semis at least.
Yeah.
And obviously when a nation that size in population gets deep, they love bringing out all the population stats. Rightly so. I mean, it's an incredible achievement, but yeah.
Well, I think Morocco don't they have a similar or it's a little bit larger than Croatia's, but I think they have a similar population as well, if I'm not mistaken. So even for them.
Them for so many reasons as well.
Yeah, hang on, let me just... No, okay, weird. I swear someone said like, oh, Morocco have like 5 million or something. Maybe they meant like the capital has 5 million, but they have 37. Maybe. So never mind. Never mind.
No, that's all right.
Put that one away. But yeah, like there's obviously like euphoria amongst like the whole country. Like I'm a little bit. I sort of don't want to. I don't want to mix myself amongst. Like go out and watch it and whatnot. I like watching, especially important games. I love watching them at home, just like in peace and quiet, and have my own moments. I know some people they like to watch it in a crowd of people and whatnot, out in a bar or whatever. But I'm not like that. But yeah, like watching TV and everything like that. Here, like there's this genuine belief that we could potentially go all the way, or like at least beat Argentina as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a complete madness. Like whatever way you cut it, even if we finish 4th overall, there's obviously gonna be a massive celebration here and whatnot, because it's a massive achievement for us, like just getting to the semis. So yeah.
Not just that, getting to the semis back-to-back World Cups as well, which is incredible for a nation of that size, as you say. Ridiculous. But do you want to do the match now, or in fact I'll contextualize this, because I found a website that did like betting records from previous World Cups. It goes back to, unless my internet was lagging and I couldn't get 94 and 90 and before that, it went back to 98, and this, according to odds makers, was pretty comfortably the biggest upset in a quarterfinal for at least the last 24 years, and I would hesitate to say beyond.
Morocco,
this
Portugal
was comfortably. No, their odds were, I think, Morocco were around $4, Croatia around $2.50. I think American dollars. Croatia were $8 outsiders, Brazil were $1.60 or $1.40 favourites. And I think that was the sentiment.
Considering there's a draw in that, like that's like tennis odds pretty much, like just between like two opponents. But like consider there's a third outcome. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, like there's been higher priced underdogs, but obviously they didn't go on to win it. And Croatia are the highest priced underdogs to win a quarterfinal tie. And I guess that sort of reflects sentiments going into the game, because I remember you saying, I'll be happy with, it's like Australia against Argentina. I'll be happy with a performance that does us proud and we don't get battered off the park. And I think that was everyone's sentiment going into this game, to be quite honest. Especially given Croatia go that full 120 in penalties against Japan as well. And Brazil obviously look the way they do, but we'll touch on Brazil.
They literally danced into the quarterfinals.
No, we got material. We got material on Brazil. Don't worry about that. But yeah, no. So, and I haven't heard that point being made, because I've listened to pretty much every podcast since the quarterfinals. And yeah, I haven't heard that point being made. So I think that just contextualizes it perfectly. This is, in our lifetime, probably the biggest rank outsider in a quarterfinal to win a quarterfinal tie. And yeah, I think that's pretty apt, because Brazil were red hot favourites, at least for this time, probably the whole tournament. So a fantastic achievement. And yeah, now I guess I'm interested to get your thoughts on the game, and what I guess you're going to look at the Croatia side, and we'll both look at it, and what you guys did to win this game, really.
Well, I can look at it even from the Brazilian side, like from...
Oh, we will.
Yeah, we will. I obviously said, like, going into the game, our midfield's better, so our midfielders need to be the ones that actually not necessarily win this game, but dictate this game and not allow Brazil to play the way that they were playing in the group stages. And just try it, and essentially control the tempo of the game. But I also have to say, like, the job that Juranovic and Pasalic did on the our right-hand side, Brazil's left-hand side, Vinicius was... Where was he? You know?
It was on the bench for the last 30 minutes of normal time, apparently, for some reason.
He wasn't on the bench from the beginning of the game as well? Because honestly, like, he was a no-show. Neymar as well in the first half. I think he had like maybe one or two runs that was sort of semi-dangerous. But and then also on the right-hand side, Rafinha barely utilized, barely did anything. But it was telling that the front three, even the front six. So if you include the midfielders, there was no work off the ball. I said
stick to Croatia. Stick to Croatia first. We'll start with the victors. Because Brazil is an autopsy, and we're going into that.
All right, I'll let you go into that most.
Well, we can both go into it, but we've got an autopsy to do because that's
Well, it was pretty much the Modric, Kovacic, and Brozovic show. I don't know who was really better between those three. At the beginning, there was a couple of wayward passes into the midfield, like into the middle of the pitch from I think the right hand side, if I'm not mistaken. It was just like, holy shit, what are you doing? Like it was a little bit nervy. It was very uncharacteristic for. I think Brozovic did it once and Modric did it once. But yeah, like the right hand side was pretty much what the amount of work that they put in off the ball, and then also on the ball. I think it sort of pegged Brazil back. Perisic is a little bit annoying. There was moments where I think there was one or two moments where he held onto the ball too long, and like there was a pass back to Kovacic or Brozovic, and he went for a shot instead of just passing it off to them and letting them have a shot. But yeah, overall, it was like I know people they might point to the stats of like Brazil having I think like they're like 7 or 8 shots on target, and then obviously like 18 shots overall on goal, and Croatia had 1 on target, 7 or 8 overall, but it wasn't dominant from that. Like that would indicate there was like a dominant from Brazil, but it wasn't at all. Like it was, and it wasn't dominant from Croatia. It was controlled. That's the best way to put it. Like Croatia controlled the tempo for pretty much the entire game. Got to say though, for the Neymar goal, Modric fell asleep on his initial pass to I can't remember who he passed it to into the midfield, and then he ran around Modric. So Modric didn't track the run, and then there was no one tracking the run obviously after that. But like it was just way too easy for him to get in there. Like they didn't block his run at all. I guess like 115 minutes. The ref's about to blow for the stoppage to go into the second half of extra time, and they just had that lapse of concentration. Livakovic as well, when he came out to try and close him down, he sort of, instead of actually going down and trying to block it with his hand, trying to get the ball with his hands, he just sort of like raised his hands like that and just sort of slid past him, which was very strange for a keeper to do that. I don't think I've ever seen a keeper do that, but maybe I guess he was worried that if he fouls him, he probably gets red carded. Maybe.
Also, it had already been working during the game because Neymar had, I think that was his 3rd chance, and Livakovic thought he'd go for the finish again, I reckon.
Yeah.
And he held his ground.
Yeah, he just like sort of...
As great players, and it's hard to... No, it's not hard to still call him a great player, but he's not as great as he should have been. But they learned from that, so he took it around this time. It's... Before we kill Brazil, I do think we need to praise that goal because it is a great World
it was
Cup
great.
goal.
It was a great goal.
It's got to be lost, but it was shades of Beckenbauer in '66 when he was still playing in midfield. The double 1-2 into the box and then the lovely finish, and it really should have been the winner. But before we kick the body of Brazil, which I guess we might have a bit of fun with. If you're Brazilian, you might not want to listen to that, but you might want to. But yeah, I think to go to your point, I agree that Brazil weren't as dominant as they should have been. It wasn't as dominant as they needed to be to take that scenario away from the game. Because I still think they were the better team. I think it's hard to argue that, but they weren't as good as they should have been to make this result like nothing that goes close to extra time. And Croatia, to their credit, they got it right in the moments that they got it right. Second half, I thought Brazil were pretty clearly the better team. They put you guys under a fair bit of pressure, but not as much pressure as they probably should have. But Livakovic had to be really good in that second half and for most of extra time as well. But what I thought you guys did well in the first half was... In the first half, and we'll touch on the Brazil part because they needed to be subpar as well, and we talked about that going into the game. But in the first half, I thought Dalic got it right in terms of how to get Croatia out of their own half and into territory where they could let the midfielders play. So the main thing you already touched on at the right-hand side, it wasn't just the defensive work on Neymar and Vini down Brazil's left. It was anytime Juranovic got the ball, he drove it forward because I think Dalic and Croatia pinpointed that Vini and Neymar aren't going to do their defensive work. So if you get the ball, you can just drive it forward and we can get up the pitch. And that happened time and time and time again that half. Remember that early cross by Juranovic to Perisic? They could have been 1-0 up inside the first 10 minutes there. So that happened often. And then as well, the other thing they targeted was whenever the ball went back to Alisson or deep into the Brazilian half, that's when they applied the press. So there was no press in the middle third from Croatia. It was either press high, try and force mistakes and try and win territory there, or if they can play past, then we'll drop all the way back. And why I think they did that, there's two reasons, because we've touched on it, Brazil's midfield is the weakest part of the team. But they find ways to get around that by, sort of playing with this balance of 5 defenders, 5 attackers. But what it means is they're trying to control the tempo of the game with players like Casemiro, Eder Militao, Danilo. They're not the best ball-playing players, so there's a clear weakness there. And I think Croatia targeted that perfectly by either pressing when they weren't set to control the tempo, those players for Brazil. So if they were getting the ball facing their own goal or getting the ball from the goalkeeper, then it was lock on and press high on there. And then the other way to deal with it is drop all the way back. And then when they have the ball, ask them, hey, we're not going to let your front 5 create. You guys create some opportunities. You guys create and dictate the tempo. And I thought, especially in the first half, we saw the weakness of Brazil right there in terms of they weren't able to create anything because, as I just mentioned, those players are not creative players. Casemiro is starting to add more and more of that to his game, I think, because Man United are sort of asking him to do more, and you could kind of see Brazil were asking him to do a lot of it in this game. But Croatia did a great job of stifling the front 5 when they were pushed back and not letting them create anything. And then also getting themselves up the pitch through those 2 mechanisms I said. So I thought, fair play to Croatia. I thought they did everything they could in this tie. But it'd be remiss to not mention that their goal comes with their only shot on target and it's a deflection. And we're going to touch on it, but it's one of the most ridiculous goals I've ever seen, given the stakes of the game. I cannot fathom what Brazil are thinking in that moment. I just can't. It's stunning. I thought the game was done, and I think most people would have thought the game was done when Neymar's goal goes in. Yeah, because Croatia's gameplay was very much to get to penalties, and as I said, no shots on target to that point. But yeah, fair play to Croatia. Absolutely did what they could do to affect the game. And as I think we said on the pod, I think the scenario was, can you take Brazil into deep waters and can you test them, because they haven't been tested in the tournament. And if you don't have anything to add on and the last thing I need to add on the Croatia side, the Orsic penalty was immensely good, because you could see it on the Brazilian faces, especially Neymar. He thought that was the one Croatia would miss. And to be fair, I thought that was the one Croatia would miss as well. Orsic just come into the game, hasn't played a huge part in the tournament. It's like, all right, if they're going to miss one, this is the one that brings them back level, puts it right in the corner, unlike Marquinhos, unfortunately. And unfortunately for him, Marquinhos is yet again the fall guy like PSG last year in the Champions League. I don't know if he just attracts this bad luck.
I don't
needs
know
to be put out of these situations for some reason.
I don't know if you can
he's
really...
not the player who deserves bad luck either.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, just with the penalties, I don't think you can necessarily blame players when they miss penalties.
No way.
However,
you could say you got to hit the target.
Yeah.
That's the only thing,
however,
but it's hard.
Yeah, we'll get onto penalties later on. However, I do think Neymar not taking one of the first 3 was a mistake.
If you got to put him on, so the debate always is: do you put your best taker on first, or do you put him on last?
First.
I see the pros and cons for both, but yeah, I think first, because we've seen,
especially after you miss the
instances.
First, or like have him go second or third after you miss the first.
In Brazil, Rodrigo took the very first penalty, right? Brazil went first in the shoot. Yeah. If you get first in the shoot, I think you put your best taker on and put the pressure on,
Yeah.
because we've seen it. We saw it with Japan, and now we saw it with Brazil. They put a weak taker on, and
And we
they
saw it
lose the
with
advantage.
Argentina.
Yeah, so they lose the advantage straight away. But yeah, I don't know if you. I think, are we done with the Croatia side? Should we start kicking around?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I don't really have much to add into, and like you pretty much said that everything that was needed to be said. Like, I think there's a lot more to dissect on the Brazil side.
Oh yeah. So I don't know where to start. I think you could start with the punchlines. Obviously, Brazil walk away from this World Cup with the trophy for best dancers, best performative routine at this World Cup. I know Roy Keane will be the first one to give it. Funnily enough, there's footage of Roy Keane scoring a winner in like the BBC versus ITV sort of like
Charity match or
kick around
something.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he takes his shirt off when he scores. It's like, oh, it's disgraceful. They shouldn't be doing that. It's disrespectful. But look, I know that the new woke media, and let's start on this point. I know that the new woke media will be the first to defend all the dancing. It's like, oh, it's just an expression. This is the way. This is Brazilian DNA. This is like just how they've always done it. Well, let me tell you, I've watched the games from the World Cup finals of 58 and 62. Yeah, from 58 and 62, I've watched most of their games from those two tournaments. I don't remember those great teams dancing after every goal that they scored. You know what they did back in the day?
Even 98 and 2002 and
Exactly.
So on. Yeah.
They ran. I think 02 there was a bit of dancing. That 02 team,
can't remember,
sort of this millennium, it was sort of brought in. But yeah, you know what they did? They ran back to their spot and they got ready to play again because they knew that the tournament was done. And you know when they did their dancing? When the tournament was won. Because honestly, this Brazil team, if they focused all their energy into winning this World Cup, they would have won this World Cup. Because we've talked about it, depth-wise, they're so superior to everyone. That's the biggest advantage. Starting 11, they're still better than everyone, I think, especially with France's injuries. If France had a full team, then we could have much of muches. But if France had a full team, they might not be at this stage. So yeah, I think the woke media will defend it all, but this isn't part of Brazilian DNA. It might be part of recent Brazilian DNA, but part of Brazilian DNA is winning World Cups. And it's now going to be 24 years going into 2026 where they haven't won a World Cup. So if that doesn't tell you that something's a little bit off kilt, I don't know what will. Especially a loss like this. Like I said, the worst underdog or like the worst favorite to lose in the quarterfinal, which is just contextualizes it all. So this Brazilian autopsy, I think, needs to be felt. I know, and I don't know, maybe the attitude will change when Neymar's not the leader, and I guess that's the second point. The second point, well, if you don't have anything to add on that point, I think we could touch on the matchup.
No, like I think you're completely right with that. Like, you don't dance after every single goal. Like, even Ronaldinho, for instance,
against Korea as well.
Yeah, and like
you're meant to beat Korea 4-1.
I can remember like Ronaldinho dancing after some goals here and there, but not in important matches. And like, I can't remember him doing it in the World Cup. And like, I can't remember it being like a routine of like 4 or 5 players,
three different dances as well.
Yeah, but I can remember him. I think for Barca a couple of times, like he runs to the corner flag and then like he does like a little move, 5 seconds, and then straight back to the middle of the pitch. I can remember those sort of things, but yeah.
Like, I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon and say like, oh, let's rule out all dancing. You've got to win the tournament. No. Like one little jig, because we know Vinny loves to do that. Yeah. And he scored the opener against Korea. Fine, whatever. But the 3 and the 4, and then with the coach, the coach never should have got involved with that. And like
have you seen the meme?
Where Modric is feeding the pigeons. That's great. But like I said at the time, I didn't think Marquinhos and Thiago Silva and Casemiro should have been getting involved with that. I thought maybe even they might have even been pulling players away after the second dance. And for the coach, Tite, who I really like, to be fair, to get involved as well, to not see the bigger picture is kind of ridiculous for me. And I talked about that maybe putting a target on Brazil's back, but I thought it would be for Argentina. Well, I think Croatia saw that and they didn't really like that either, because I wouldn't put it past them seeing all that and being like, "What the hell are you guys doing? Like, we're here to win, we're here to be professional. We're here to win a game." And that told, because I think that's embodied in the matchup of number 10s, because I was so disappointed with Neymar. And I've heard the defense for him, that he's still carrying that injury. And I guess maybe that means he can't do any defensive work. He can just, all he can do is attacking work. But he didn't look too injured when he was playing those 1-2s and scoring the goal in the 115th minute. So I'm just wondering where that work rate was in the first half, where Juranovic kept penning his team back. Him and Vidi, I've got to say, because Vidi's a young player, he can work
Yeah,
as well.
Vinny didn't work at all.
Exactly. Neither of them did. And that's why Croatia pinpointed that and said, drive with the ball, get past them, because they're not going to track you.
What else? Like Richarlison didn't work at all either. Remember how I said that Japan sort of made the blueprint of how to shut down the midfield with Maeda shutting down Brozovic and especially Modric. Richarlison didn't do any of that work that Maeda did against Croatia in Japan-Croatia.
Well, to be fair, I will say that the formations are different, and that enables. I thought Neymar was always the closest player to Modric when Modric started dictating the tempo. And I think maybe, if I'm offering a defense, I think maybe the Brazilian game plan was for Richarlison to more shut down Guardiola, because Guardiola likes to bring the ball forward as well. And I thought, I don't know if the game plan was Neymar to press Modric, because he never did it, but he should have done it. Because the reason I'm so disappointed with Neymar is, Modric outplayed him. Fine, that can happen. Modric is an all-time great, and he's still playing at an all-time great level. But Neymar let it happen. Neymar saw Modric dictating tempo and never thought once, hey, I'm going to put a bit of pressure on him. I'm going to go and get in his face a little bit. He's not just going to pass around. And you know what? If Neymar does that, Vinny's going to start tracking Juranovic. Richarlison's got to start pressing from the back on Modric or Brozovic, because Neymar is, at least in the attacking sense, the leader of this team, and I'd say in the holistic sense, the leader of this team. Everyone in Brazil is looking at Neymar to make the difference. And to be fair, he scored a fantastic goal, and it should have been the difference maker. But at the same time, it wasn't. And when we pick apart the body, I mean, I've got to point to that, and I know the injury defense is there, but I don't really care, because this is, in all probability, your last World Cup. In all probability, your last legacy-defining game, especially for a Brazilian at the World Cup. And he never sensed the urgency. He never sensed, hey, you know what? We're in a bit of trouble here. They've taken us into extra time, and we know how good they are at penalties. We need to get on top of them, because we're the better team. Brazil and Neymar wasted 45 minutes of this game because they thought they were just too good for Croatia. I think they believed their own hype when they came into this game. And that 45 minutes was an absolute waste. They didn't come in with any tempo. They didn't come in to turn the screw on Croatia, really put them under pressure and play that high-energy vertical game that I think would have carried them through this game. They sort of sat back. They didn't really control it. They let Croatia have a lot of ball, a lot of territory, and they never felt the urgency. And I think Neymar has to shoulder the most of that blame. And I think he should be. And obviously he doesn't get a chance to take a penalty. But yeah, super disappointed with Neymar, especially when you think about his career since he left Barcelona and how disappointing he's been at PSG, how much he just hasn't seemed to care. And then in the biggest moment of your career to date, you still seem like you don't care for a good 60 minutes of the game, maybe longer. Oh, that guy, if he wins the World Cup with Brazil this World Cup, we're talking about him as a top 20 player of all time. He's nowhere near that standard, and he won't be near that standard. He's got some great accomplishments to his name, so I don't want to diminish him too much. But he'll never be in that breath of all-time greats, because this is exactly why. He didn't show up for the biggest game. I know, he scored that wonderful goal, but in all in the game, I thought Luka Modric outplayed him, and when one best player outplays another, that's always a pretty big reason as to why a team wins or loses a game.
But just to add to your point, with all-time greats, like, a lot of those players from the mid to that one that won the team that won the 2002 World Cup. A lot of those players actually won the '94 World Cup as well, or were part of the squad that won it, and they also made the final in '98. So they made 3 finals and won 2 out of 3 of them. A lot of those players. So like all of those players are ahead of him in the Brazil all-time great list as well. So I don't know how Neymar would be
Well,
even in the
I think
conversation.
from memory, the only one who won both of the ones that they won
Carlos, Cafu,
was
and
Cafu.
I think
I
I'm
think
pretty sure
Ronaldo and Roberto Carlos were in the '94 squad, but I don't
they're in the
think they
squad.
even played.
I think Carlos
They
was
definitely didn't
playing.
play a minute in the final. I don't
No,
think
they might not have,
Carlos
but I
was.
think Carlos was. He played a couple of games. Ronaldo, I don't think he got that many minutes, but he was still part of the squad. I don't know who else was there, but it would be interesting to see who else was there. But then a lot of the players that were in the '98 one that lost, they were also in the 2002 one. So and then they were actually in the starting 11 of '98 and then 2002 as well. But it would be interesting to see how many players would not necessarily played in every single game or in the finals of all three, but were part of the squad of all three. At the very least, part of the squad of all three. But like Cafu, he's ahead of Neymar. Roberto Carlos is ahead of Neymar. Ronaldo, obviously. Ronaldinho. I know he was only in 2002. He wasn't even part. I think he was almost part of the '98 team. Almost. I think he just did. I think he made like. I think that was back when he was 23. I think he was part of like the final 26 or final 30 to make the cut, and then he just missed out.
Yeah. Yeah, and on resume, I agree. It's always a little hard to compare defenders to attackers, but yeah, on resume, that's true. Like I said, I don't want to diminish Neymar too much because he has accomplished pretty good things in the game. But this would have been the crowning one, and this would have taken him into a completely new stratosphere. And I was very disappointed to not see that urgency, injured or not. Like I don't really care about that.
Like you said, he didn't seem pretty injured when he was celebrating the goal, and he was actually doing a running, jumping celebration as well. Like,
yeah, exactly.
if you're really injured,
Exactly right.
are you going to risk taking a bad landing after jumping like 1.5, 2 meters in the air?
Yeah. So I guess the next point in the autopsy is the substitutions, and I've heard this point a lot, so we don't need to labour it. I'm sure the listeners have probably, if they've listened to other pods on the World Cup, they've probably heard it as well. But maybe not even the substitutions, maybe the initial team sheet. And I said going in, I thought there might be a chance for him to play Paquetá on the right and bulk up the midfield. And in hindsight, obviously easy to say, but he should have done that because Rafinha was absolutely useless in the game. Like useless. Vinny, at least I can understand why he's out there because if Vinny's on the pitch, like you're always worried about Vinny. Like even if he's having a bad day, you've still got to be worried about Vinny. But Rafinha didn't really perform a function in any way, shape, or form in this game. Wasn't particularly awesome in his defensive work, and then obviously didn't do anything with the ball. And then when it comes time to make substitutions, he makes like for like substitutions. Anthony at least was trying to do more, but he was poor in whatever he needed to do. Really, obviously he's a young player, so I'm not going to pile on. But then the Rodrigo swirl, and if I offer a logic to it, it's because he wanted those runs by Juranovic tracked. But and we keep seeing this, and this has kind of been a theme for a few World Cups, I guess. These questionable substitutions, and we're not privy to what goes on and what the fitness is like of each of these players. But I don't know. I would be entering these tournaments with a hard and fast rule. If the game's in the balance within 2 goals and within the right amount of time, I'm not taking off any of my 3 best players. It's just not happening. Unless they're dying out there, I'm not taking them off. Because Vidi is easily Brazil's second best attacking player. You could argue first best if you wanted to on form. To take him off after 60 minutes and replace him like for a cheaper version of him with Rodrigo is just puzzling to me. Because, yes, I get the point he wasn't having a good game, but he's still a difference maker. And when that game becomes a bit tired, it becomes a bit stretched, the whole point you didn't ask him to track back is because you want to use his offensive talents, especially when the opposition are tired. And to not have that option on the pitch when push came to shove, when the game was getting decided, is just baffling for me. I can't understand it. I can't understand Bruno Guimaraes hardly getting any minutes in this World Cup. He wasn't great against Cameroon, but again, that Cameroon game was a dead rubber and the whole team lost 1-0. He had a few chances to score a goal, but still, when you're going up in a midfield battle, um, I think Paquetá, Guimaraes, and Casemiro is more than enough to handle what is an undoubtedly great Croatian midfield. But I think it at least offers more of a balance and more of a challenge for them in a game that's going that way. So and it sort of negates Croatia's only advantage that they could have hoped to have over Brazil. So I think more so than the substitutes, the team sheet was wrong going into the game, especially because Rafinha hasn't been in good form for Barcelona either coming into this World Cup. So continuing to pick him and then not playing this high energy football that we've seen from Brazil was baffling. So I guess Tite has to shoulder a lot of this blame as well, and we touched on it with the celebrations as well. I've liked his reign. I still think he's the best man for the job. I know he's leaving the post, but you know what? In international football, there's always these scenarios where they just ask him to come back, and they might come back. So I still think he's the man to lead Brazil forward. I think he's done good things, but yeah, to be through the failures that this Brazil team has been through for ever since they won the World Cup in '02, and to seemingly not learn from them and keep coming into these quarterfinals clashes as if it's your divine right to win and to go to the final and to not be challenged because you're Brazil. It's just a ridiculous mentality for me. And honestly, I'm disappointed they're out because I think they have a higher ceiling and we could have watched better football from Brazil being in the tournament. But fair play to Croatia. They should have. They deserve to be through because Brazil don't deserve to be through as much as anything. As much as their play means they deserve to be through as well. And the last point, we got to touch on this. This is the biggest travesty. I don't know. I'm struggling to rack my brain for worse travesties. The goal in the 17th minute,
Yeah.
you're a goal up, and you've committed 7 players forward to an attack when you're 1-0 up with 3 minutes left, and you've left yourself open for a counter attack. Like, I don't know. Have you? I can't recall ever seeing that in a high stakes game that a team has left themselves open for the counter attack being a goal up. It is madness. It is absolute madness that is allowed to happen. And for those Brazilian players to think that getting forward and trying to score another goal is more important than guarding against the counter attack is complete arrogance, completely wrong, and completely indicative of why they're out of this World Cup. I mean, it is the key moment, but just the mentality behind the whole moment is just madness to me. I cannot fathom it. It's unbelievable.
But you know what? It was also because if you remember the sequence of the play, I think the ball gets. I think it ends up being played back almost into our, depending on how you look at the pitch, like pretty much into the corner, and Lovren has to chase it back and then clear it. And instead of him clearing it out of play, he clears it up the field. And obviously, yeah, they're trying to apply a high press with the subs that they brought on and whatnot, and try to trap us in the corner. And then it's also the weakness of the midfield, where our midfield is obviously much better quality, so they're able to play around and get the ball and play around the press. And then, but yeah, like you said, like committing that many men forward. I thought when I saw the replay of it, I'm like, hang on, why is there's 4 Croatian players against 3 Brazilian players? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, yeah, that was I don't know. It was like you said, madness if you're a Brazilian fan or whatnot. Is there anything else that you want to add? Because I have one final question.
Yeah, go on your final thing. I think I've completed the autopsy on Brazil.
Yeah, I think we said
I'm my 3rd victim of the World Cup behind Denmark and Switzerland.
I just want to ask, there was a handball decision. Do you think that was a handball or not? Because I like, it obviously is a handball, like it did touch his hand, but in the context of it all, it's not a handball, and it was rightly not given.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I was fine with the decision. It's not something
No
that
one's
I'm going to
talking
harp
about it though,
back
so I
on.
wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. I was fine. I was actually in that sequence. I was more confused because Brazil were applying a bit of pressure, and then the linesman decided to put his flag up for some reason. I have no idea why he was putting his flag up.
I think
Be-
I think like one of the players might have ran offside on the shot or whatever. Like after
Because I
that,
remember seeing it
maybe.
back, no one was offside because he put his flag up and then ran back to the edge of the box where the handball, I guess, occurred. So I think he was trying to give offside for that, but then I looked it back. I was like, no one's offside there, man. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, the
No idea.
handball, it's probably a 60-40, not a handball, but it falls into the category of could be given. But like once it goes to VAR, I think that's not clear and obvious and shouldn't be given.
I
So I'm
think
not
it was
sure.
rightly not given because Brazil actually got an advantage from it. Like it ended up
Yeah,
falling
that too.
directly
That
to
too.
Vinny. Like if it didn't,
Yeah, and they made a chance from that.
yeah, if it
They
didn't, if
probably
it
should have scored from that.
yeah, and if it didn't hit his hand, it probably would have bounced either to the corner or out of play if Vinny didn't like actually run on and retrieve the ball. But it because it took the deflection off his hand, it fell directly to his feet. So like Brazil got the advantage of it as well. So if you add that into the context of the fact that his hand was, I think also the argument is like your hand's in a natural position. So like he was, like I think, and then it fell over his head. He missed it, and then his hand is like just here alongside his body in a natural position, and then it hits his hand. So he has no idea that it's gonna fall and hit his hand. So it would have, and I think it's excellent refereeing because Michael Oliver didn't influence the game whatsoever. Like he didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to make myself the man of this game," and
Well, like he did at the Emirates earlier this season.
yeah, well,
Michael
maybe he
Oliver.
learned the lesson. But yeah, like it was actually a really good refereeing performance. I gotta say, and I'm not saying that just because Croatia won, but like a lot of the decisions, I think were correct. I don't think there was any
Yeah, yeah.
controversial ones. Whereas, like if you look
No,
at
no,
if
no.
you look at the other quarterfinals, I
Well,
think
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is this your segue into talking about at least one of the other
yeah,
quarterfinals
like
with
all
poor
three.
refereeing?
I think all three had
Yeah.
complaints in regards to the referee. This was the
Well, which
only.
one do you want to Which one do
Well,
you want to go
well,
on to
like I
then?
think chronologically, just go on to Argentina, and Netherlands.
Yeah.
So we can go on to that next.
Hey, look. My opinion on Mateo Lahoz is I actually love Mateo Lahoz. He's so much fun to watch him referee a game. I know he's a bit uh, the center of attention for it all, but I don't know. It adds this little spice that's fun. And for all those players complaining after the game, especially the Argentinian players who don't have a leg to stand on because they were getting the favourable rub of those decisions, I thought. But for all those players who were complaining, especially Messi, who's played in Spain for so many years, he's had this referee so many times. How can you not understand what you get with Mateo Lahoz? Like you've just got to go into the game. It's like we know what we're going to get with this guy. We've got to play our way accordingly. I think it's more onto the players, especially when a referee already has that reputation behind them. You've just got to play. It's part of the scenario. It's part of I call it like the perspective the players have to play with. They have to be aware of the score, they have to be aware of the time, the conditions, and they have to be aware of the referee. And the referee was Mateo Lahoz. Everyone knows who's ever watched the game where he referees, knows how he referees a game. And I, for one, love watching him referee a game because it adds this spice of chaos, which we definitely saw in this game. And I thought it was additive rather than reductive to this game, to be quite honest.
His I don't know, the referee's face is escaping me, but like
He's like bald. He has this like
hang on.
cheeky smirk when he's giving people yellow cards.
Mateo Lehoz. I don't know. I wrote hose, and I'm just getting hoses. Hang on, there we go. Oh yeah. Dude, he does Champions League and stuff. Like every single
Yeah, yeah.
every single player should be. And I thought he was actually, he's pretty decent in the Champions League. Like he's one of my more fond refs. Which I think that's why it was more surprising why the game got so chaotic at times. Because he's usually a very good referee.
Well, he can lend himself to chaos. I will say that. He's in the Mike Dean mold. He's eccentric. He's off the grid, and that's what kind of why I like him. He's different to everyone else. But you got to say, like, if you're blaming for the referee for that game getting out of control, well, look to Argentina as well and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Because even I get why they came off the bench after Paredes should have been sent off. He should have been yellowed for the tackle and yellowed for the smashing the ball into the bench. I get why they were up in arms, but you can't enter the pitch. You can't all storm onto the pitch and then confront the guy. Like, I know he's an idiot and he's done something wrong, and I've been a big advocate against Leandro Paredes for a while, but at the same time, you can't all just get up and storm onto the pitch. So, like, if you want a reason why that game got chaotic, look no further than the two teams. To be fair to the referee,
I didn't realize that Argentina and the Netherlands was so spicy. But if you look at like in the past, like I think like they get demolished by Cruyff's Netherlands in the '74 World Cup. I think they got beaten 4-0 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then in the '78 they meet in the final. Netherlands lose 2-0. I'm not sure if there was any other ones, but then there's the '98 World Cup, and then obviously I think that was the quarters, and then there's the semi-final in the 2014 one as well. So there's quite a bit of history there between these two nations.
Yeah, definitely.
But
what did you think of the game?
Dirty. That's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like I think it's stuck in my mind where you said like Argentina is that team to like drag teams into the mud and like sort of like then do that like sort of like that dirty wrestling and just like make you fight for absolutely everything. And I think in our group chat like I said that Argentina, like if I'm to compare like South American teams, like Argentina reminds me of like a team of like rabid dogs that haven't been fed for a week, and you just put them out on the football pitch. Especially this Argentina, like I think previous ones may not have had this sort of bite to them, but like obviously going back years and years, but like I think the last like 2 or 3 iterations, last 2 or 3 World Cups, they haven't been like this ferocious. But then you compare that to Brazil, and Brazil just looked like sort of queens or tried to be queens like on the football pitch, tried to play nice and
more like princesses.
Or princesses, and they tried to like they thought the game was already done and they just needed to go out there and be elegant and they're entitled to win. Whereas Argentina are like they know that they need to fight to win, and it showed in this game. Like I think that's one of the best ways to sort of describe it. Netherlands get undone by a moment of brilliance, moment of magic.
You know why that happened, don't you? I said it in the preview. Van Gaal didn't bulk up his midfield. So Messi's allowed that space to pick up the ball in the midfield. De Jong has to come out, press him, over presses him, lets him turn back inside. And Ake, who has been tracking, I want to say, I can't remember who he was tracking inside, but he's left that gap. And Messi's already seen that gap. Messi knows there's a gap there. I'm not going to use it right now because there's not a player for me to exploit that gap with, but I know that gap is there. So as soon as Frankie de Jong gets rolled, Messi knows what he's doing with that pass. He's just got to wait for Molina to get in the right spot. And then it's an absolute... The thing about the pass that I love, it's not only that he's hit it with accuracy there, but it's sliding, it's rolling along the ground for Molina to control it. And to be fair, the touch and finish is wonderful from Molina as well, who is a player who I've criticised often. But yeah, Messi knew exactly what he was going to do. Argentina, I'd be tempted to say the coaching staff had a word and said, look out for this. Can you pick up the ball around the pockets of those 2 central midfielders? And because when you only have 2 central midfielders, of course Nathan Ake has to come out and press into midfield. And that's been the Dutch game plan for years under Van Gaal now, ever since this unbeaten run has started, really. And I just felt that Argentina were always going to exploit that with Messi. And it bore out in this game because, I just thought Van Gaal, he wanted to praise himself for how right he got it against the US. Well, you got to criticize him for him getting it wrong in this game because to not bulk up that midfield, to not deny Argentina's best player and comfortably their best player and I can't say their only creative player, but maybe their only creative player in the front third because Enzo Fernandez is playing deeper. For them to allow him space to do what he does, and he did what he does, is just madness for me. To not clog that up, especially when you're ushering in players like Steven Bergwijn into the team. Like Steven Bergwijn isn't a player who's good enough for me to compromise your defensive shape just so you can get him into the team. You can just start with Depay and Gakpo up front. You don't need to usher in a Davy Klaassen or a Steven Bergwijn. They can be options off the bench, but put another midfielder on. Put De Roon on as the holding, De Jong one side, Koopmeiners or Berghuis on the other side. Bulk it up and then play on the counter. And like I said as well, it allows you to press a bit higher. And what this Argentina team showed in that game against Saudi Arabia is they don't like it when teams get into their faces. And the Dutch system never let them get into their faces until, to Van Gaal's, I guess, credit, he shouldn't have got it wrong in the first place, but he did change the system more to that in the second half. It still didn't work because eventually he had to go to that 4-4-2 with the two big fellas up top, which eventually works. But yeah, I thought that first goal, which is obviously the first goal in any game, is a pretty key goal. I thought that was down to, well, it's hard to say this about Louis van Gaal, who's been around the block for so long, but a bit of tactical naivety. I couldn't believe he didn't change it up for that, to be quite honest. I just thought it was obvious where Argentina were going to get their joy. Considering they have no wingers, I don't know why you wouldn't bulk up the middle of the pitch. But I guess that's why the Dutch are out. Should we touch on... I guess enough's been said about the free kick, right? Although it was very clever.
Oh, the Netherlands won in the 110th. I gotta say though, for like once the Dutch got their first goal back, I was like, oh, this could be a little nervy. And I was like, oh man, I really hope this goes into extra time because we had to do another 120 minutes. And like it will suck so much if we have to play another 120 minutes, but they don't. Like Brazil didn't have to. Like they comfortably beat South Korea, but yeah, I was like, the whole game though, I was like, I don't know who I want to win and who I want to face in the semi-final, considering our game was before them, so I already knew we're through, and like we're going to face the winner out of either one of these two. So I approached this game more like, who do I want to win? I don't know if I have a preference out of both teams, really.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, because like they both offer different problems that I think Croatia. We'll get into it. Like that Croatia can solve, but I still think Argentina's weaker defensively, at least.
Okay.
But yeah,
hold on to that.
We'll get into it later on. But I gotta say, like, credit to the Dutch for getting themselves back into the game and just like there was just sort of like it was that classic bombardment, like the last 10 minutes, just trying to bomb balls into the box.
When you put Wout Weghorst on the pitch, and Luke de Jong to that matter, you know what the game plan is. Two big men up top.
Yeah,
let's just put balls into the box, and that's what they did, and it worked. Last point.
But then in extra time, they didn't really attack it in extra time at all. It seems like they wanted to take it to penalties, which is strange.
Yeah, human nature comes into this a lot because like you've lost the game for all intents and purposes. You're 2-0 down. I don't think they scored until like the 84th minute or something. So when you get it back to 2-2, I can completely understand human nature taking over. It's like, well, now we actually have something to defend again. So they defend a little bit more, and as you see, the pieces that they had to bring themselves back into the game, I don't think lend themselves to playing any more defensive than they had to. They had to keep bombarding, but I don't want to criticize them too much for not keeping bombarding because I understand how human nature comes into it. And you're just like, well, now we actually have something to defend. But at the same time, I believe the Dutch record in penalty shootouts is pretty abysmal. So, and they didn't have Tim Krul this World Cup. So I think maybe they should have, but it's easy to say that in hindsight. But I think the last point I wanted to make on this game was, again, about the matchups. And there's just two key points, but I said going in, Virgil van Dijk would have to be massive for the Dutch to get through this game. I thought Messi outplayed him. and I thought it was shown by the first goal, because I actually think peak Virgil van Dijk, if he doesn't already read the passes on to Molina, and I think peak Van Dijk probably reads that, to be fair. I think he understands where the space is, and he probably could intercept that, or at least see it quicker, so that Molina is not through on goal with his first touch, or he even gets back and makes a challenge on the Molina finish. I think if Van Dijk was really on it and really in form, and I know I'm nitpicking here, but I think if he was as good as he was in his, this is still kind of his prime, but in like that 18-19 season, or even 19-20, if he was as good as back then, I think he could have affected that situation better, especially because he's already come up against Messi, and he already knows what Messi's all about, how intelligent he is. And then also the penalty. Messi scores his and Van Dijk misses his, and that's ultimately why the Dutch are out. And Van Dijk's a pretty good penalty taker. I think he telegraphed that one a bit. He wanted to smash it, as we saw in the League Cup final against Kepa, where he smashed it to the side where Kepa was standing. But Emi Martinez is really good at penalties, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in those two moments, we saw the best player of Argentina get the better of the best player of the Netherlands. And ultimately, when it's fine margins and you go to penalties like that, they are the differences in the result. So, yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to touch on the game. And then I guess we could look at bigger picture semi-final stuff if you have nothing more to add.
Yeah, just really quickly, I know we sort of touched on it, but like Messi taking the first penalty for I think that was the very first penalty of the whole shootout, wasn't it?
I think Van Dijk took the very first. I think.
I think
Have to fact
I
check.
think he might have, but anyway, but Messi taking the first one. Do you think that he might have seen that earlier in the day Neymar put himself fit? Well, who knows whether Tite put
Probably
Neymar
not.
or
They'll probably
Neymar.
already. They'll probably already warming up.
But still,
Get prepared.
Messi going first, so like sets the. I was like, this is setting the tone, and like if he misses, it sets the tone. If he scores, it sets the tone, and Argentina go on to win. And yeah, he just put it away with supreme confidence, and then the way that he just like looked at the crowd and sort of egged them on, like, "Yep, we're winning this." That's the immediate feeling that you got from it.
Well, that's another thing you got to point to, and the difference between Neymar and Messi so far this tournament. Messi's taken on the leadership responsibility in a way that I guess you could probably point to the Copa last year, or it was last year,
Yeah.
and that was probably the start of this. But it's taken on. It's gone to the next level for this tournament. It's what I've been calling for Messi for years. It's kind of what we saw from Ronaldo in 2016 at the Euros. There's this added element of leadership, and it's not just leading by being the best player anymore. He's actually leading by engaging the fans, engaging his teammates, talking to teammates before the game, making sure the team's all bonded. All these things are, I think we could have seen from Messi a lot earlier, but I don't think it's in his personality and characteristics. But we're finally seeing him push himself out of his comfort zone to do this, and I think it's reaping the rewards in this semi-final run so far. So, and obviously in the semi-finals, you, Martin, Nico, Croatia, Argentina. I think these teams are...
We're getting into that semi-final, then we'll do the other side.
Yeah, I think like
Yep.
the same way we did it last week. And
All right.
I think going into this, Croatia must feel that they have a better chance than they did coming up against Brazil. They must feel like they can beat anyone now. But at the same time, I still put Argentina as the favourites. Probably again a 60-40 like Argentina faced against the Netherlands in the quarterfinals. I just think that these teams are very similar in the way they play. That meta sort of argument that these two teams are horizontal teams. They want to control possession. They want to keep the ball. They want to control the midfield, obviously. I don't see as big an advantage for Croatia in the midfield as they had over Brazil. While I think they have better players in the midfield, I think Argentina's midfield is on the whole younger, and I think they can probably combat what Croatia will do a little bit better than Brazil did. I think to the point as well, Argentina have been battle hardened ever since the second game of this tournament, which has really helped them. whereas Brazil were never battle hardened in this tournament. They thought they could float through it. Argentina have already been into the mud, and they've been in the mud for 4 games or whatever it is now. So they know what the pressure is. They know they need to be right on it. Brazil never got to that stage, and they never felt the urgency. So, and I think that did, like, as good as Croatia were, I think that helped Croatia winning, that Brazil were off their game. So I give the advantage to Argentina. And I guess the question I want to ask you before getting your thoughts on it as well is, do you think people, and I've listened to a lot of like British centric podcasts through like some of the newspapers over there, and some of them just annoy the crap out of me because on one podcast, they were talking about Theo Hernandez, and we'll get to that later, but admittedly, Theo Hernandez was horrible, and I can't defend my boy in the game against England. But like one of the podcasters was talking about him like he didn't even know who he was. And I'm just like, how can you be on a football podcast and you don't know who Theo Hernandez is, bro? Like that's just disgraceful. But this British-centric attitude, it's just terrible. What was my point? But yeah, a lot of them, when they talk about Argentina, they're just like, it's a bunch of nobodies and Messi. And it's like, if you watch any European football, you know that this isn't a bunch of nobodies. This is a team who have players playing for informed clubs all over Europe, and they're key pieces in these clubs. They're not household names yet, but I still think this team is a good team. And do you think Argentina's been disrespected in the way that they've played too far? I know they haven't set the world alight, but who can you say has set the world alight this World Cup? I don't think any of the Final Four have been particularly fantastic footballing sides. I think they've played in ways that have helped themselves win, but like nothing overly memorable, I'd say, like beyond the runs. Like the football itself hasn't been the memorable part, maybe. So I just think Argentina have been a little bit disrespected, and I'm keen to get your view on what you've seen and what you've heard as well, and if you think it's a little unfair.
You know what the problem is? It's that it might also be. It's sort of similar with not when I don't think we're really guilty of it, but I can see it even on our podcast. Like we have a focus on the Premier League, right? And then we spend on average, like what our podcast is 2 hours. We spend like hour and a half on the Premier League, or if it's Champions League, we spend hour and a half on the Champions League, or 2 hours on the Champions League. But then there's no, because that's midweek, it's just UCL. But then like half an hour goes towards all the other leagues, or all the top 4 or 5 leagues. So it's like, 3/4 of it is Premier League, 1/4 of it is the rest of the leagues. And the problem then is that a lot of these people, they're like, it's just Messi, and that's the only player that they know. But that also might be because he's the best player in the world.
He's not anymore.
All right, but it's also similar. Like back in the when Ronaldo was at Real Madrid, it was always like when it was El Clasico, it wasn't Barca versus Real Madrid. It was always Ronaldo versus Messi, and I doubt anyone would say, it's Real Madrid are a bunch of nobodies plus Ronaldo. Barca are a bunch of nobodies plus Messi. But in this case, it probably is more to that fact, because a lot of these players, they play for, like, you have one Man City player in Alvarez, but Haaland's taken the shining light since arriving. You have Enzo Fernandez, Di Maria's, like, he's been quiet because he's recovered from injury coming into this World Cup. Then you have Rodrigo de Paul. You have Emi Martinez, who plays at Aston Villa. Then you have the other Martinez, who plays at United. So like there's like a handful of names that only play at like top clubs. The rest of them are playing at like, maybe, would you say, mid-table clubs?
Yeah, a few, but you've got obviously the Benfica boys, the couple of Atletico boys. So,
but I think
it's just that
it's because they're not playing in the Premier League. That's why.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but like in terms of how Was one of your questions how we're looking at it here, like locally, and how we're treating Argentina?
No, just well, whatever you've heard, because I think what I've heard has just been slightly disrespectful to Argentina. Because
It's
I think people
complete opposite here.
okay, that bodes well for you guys because you guys should be treating them with absolute respect
Yeah.
going into this semi-final. But I think it's a little bit. I don't know. I think people have this expectation that their World Cup winner needs to be swashbuckling and they need to be Brazil of 1958. It's like that very rarely turns out to be the case. The World Cup winner is kind of just this battle-hardened team that comes through their tests, gets their little bits of luck where they need it, and they win the tournament. And I think the thing with Argentina, as we've said before, they might not have all these absolute superstars littered through the team, maybe as we've come to expect from Argentina, maybe the last decade or so. But what they don't have is many weaknesses. They don't have many glaring weaknesses in that team, which is a lot more than can be said about, well, I'm going to throw out a percentage again, probably 85 to 90% of the other teams in this tournament, because I think other teams have glaring weaknesses, whereas Argentina, if you wanted to be critical, you go to right back. But even then, their right back, Molina, scores an important goal in the quarterfinal of the Champions League, of the World Cup. So I don't know. They just don't have really glaring weaknesses in the team. But I think people expect them to be littered with superstars and play this unbelievable football. That's just not what it's about, especially at this stage of the World Cup.
Yeah, they probably have this like association of, when you mention Argentina, then you obviously think of Brazil, their main rival, and you think of, Brazil, they play this wonderful football like Joga Bonito, Samba, and all this stuff. And they're like, Argentina should play similar. And I don't think it's ever been that way, where Argentina play this. Like, sometimes they can play really nice football. Like the 2006 World Cup, they played some really nice football. But then, like, if you look back at the teams that actually won the World Cups, especially that 78 team.
No, 70. Here's the thing before you go on. 78, there's this, like, from my understanding from the outside, obviously, not living in Argentina. I've been to Argentina, but I haven't lived there. There's this battle, as it is with most countries. You see it with the Dutch, with Van Gaal playing this way, and everyone wanting, or not everyone, but a lot of people wanting it to be more total football. You see this in Argentina. That 78 team is actually under Menotti, and with Mario Kempes as the attacking leader. That team is actually like the more idealistic team, the more total football, if you want to borrow the phrase from the Dutch. That team's the actual one that were trying to play the football in that tournament, and they were the dreamers, the idealists, and they win the tournament. And then you go 8 years later under Bilardo at 86, and that team is this new Argentina team, which is the dirty, the grimy. Everyone's going to put in their shift and make this game really grimy, but we've got the player who can make the difference. And obviously Maradona to Messi is an easy comparison to make. So it's pretty easy to see why they're choosing to go that way. But I think Argentina has this battle, this internal battle between the dreamers and the pragmatists. And I guess you're seeing a more pragmatic side, which is easy to see because they want to emulate 86 and Maradona and Messi, which any Argentina would want to be a part of that.
Yeah, because like when my dad's spoken about like Argentina teams, or like when Matthias has spoken, or when his dad has spoken about previous Argentina teams, they've always been more on the dirty side, and they've been more known for that rather than playing this beautiful football that Brazil is always associated with. But yeah, they're not like that, but you'd expect them. But then also to that point, you'd expect them to be like that because they have a player like Messi, who at Barcelona, he's been part of this new revolution of tiki-taka, this sort of beautiful football that's been part of this Pep revolution since he came to the fore of coaching. But then also, you have Maradona as well, who's like arguably one of, if not the greatest player of all time as well. You'd be like, then he would have played beautiful football with his teams. It's like, no, man. If you watch some tapes of him, like, he was a pretty dirty bastard off the ball. So
off the pitch as well.
Yeah. but yeah, like I don't think going into this game though, like, I'm hoping I'm hoping that's not going to be similar to what we got with Netherlands, Argentina, but I have a feeling it might be just because Argentina are going to drag the game into that direction.
I don't think you guys will let it happen. I think you got too much experience in key positions to let that happen.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get suckered into it. But but then also, like, you saw how important the referee is, like in like Brazil, Croatia to Argentina, Argentina, Netherlands. So I'm going to be curious to see what kind of referee we get. Like, and I mentioned on the last pod, hopefully we get a European referee because all these players play in Europe. There's no point having an American referee there, or if you put a South American referee there, then like you're gonna have Croatia that might say, oh well, why are you having a South American referee that he might favor than Argentina's game, or Argentina are going to know how to exploit a South American referee with certain antics, whereas like with a European referee, at least he knows all these players because these players play in Europe. So that might also be a factor as well. I wonder if the referee has been announced for the game or not. Actually, he might have been. It's 24 hours before the game.
Just as you look at this up, was there anything else on this semi-final that you wanted to say? I think I've said it all. Look, I think we've talked enough about the teams at this stage of the tournament. It's just about matchups, and I think this is two teams who will play pretty similar. To your point, I'll be interested to see if Argentina try those antics. I think they'd be missing a trick if they try those antics. I think they're just slightly the better side, and I don't think they should get involved in that because Croatia, I don't think, will get involved in that. And if they do, there is a chance for Croatia to use that to their advantage because I think they're experienced enough to deal with that.
I mentioned it sort of earlier when I was saying I'm not sure who I want, whether I want Netherlands or whether I want Argentina. I think I would have just edged to prefer Argentina because I do think that they have more weaknesses, at least at the back, than what Netherlands have. But Argentina are slightly, and you mentioned Argentina are slightly stronger in the midfield compared to Netherlands. At least in not by a massive margin, but they're slightly stronger. But so in both of those games, we would have had a better midfield. But at least there's going to be, at least on paper, a slightly easier defense to get at with Argentina. And I know Netherlands copped 2 goals in the first 90 minutes. Playing Argentina, but still, I think it would have been harder to go against a Dutch defense than an Argentine defense. And I think also, if I'm not mistaken, Acuna is missing through suspension.
Yeah.
So he's a left back, correct? So that's gonna be a big miss. But I don't know who the backup left back is for.
Tagliafico.
He's decent. I've always sort of rated him.
Yeah, he's decent. Yeah. I actually, especially defensively, I actually prefer Tagliafico over Acuna.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting. I do think that it'll be similar to the Brazil game where like if we control the midfield, then it should be our game to lose. I think that's the best way of putting it because.
Your problem is you give yourselves no margin for error because of the lack of attacking options, the hodgepodge of attacking options. I mean, Pekovic scores the goal, but he was awful until he scored that goal. He was really poor.
I remember me and Tiffany were like cursing him. We're like, dude, this guy when he comes onto the pitch, like he's such a fantastic player. Like technically, if you look at it, like how you're like, dude, he's such a good player, but whenever he gets the ball, he controls it beautifully, and then like within a second or two, he loses the ball with a bad pass or a bad touch after he controls like an impossible ball to control. You're like, well, come on, man! Like, and so like we're in those final 15 minutes, me and Tiff are having a go at him. We're like, yeah, like has he come to have like a Sunday kick at the park with a couple of his mates or something? Because he doesn't apply pressure on the ball either. Like when we're out of possession, so he doesn't even offer that. Like and then he comes up with that bloody goal. It's like, okay, like maybe we need to like hang shit on him more so that he can like prove like us wrong and whatnot. But I was also thinking, like, especially when the Dutch brought it back to 2-2, I was like, remember I don't know if you ever ended up watching the Van Dijk interview with Neville, how he mentioned that he hates going up against Giroud. I was like, if we get Netherlands, Dalic needs. I was going to save this for the pod. I was like, Dalic needs to show him Petkovic footage of Giroud playing against Van Dijk, like, and be like, study this, dream about it, everything. Like, this is how you're playing against Van Dijk, and we'll win this game. But yeah, we get Martinez and Otamendi, which is a different.
Well, I
battle.
hope it's Martinez. It'll probably be Romero and Otamendi, to be fair. But
who would you take, Romero or Martinez or Otamendi? Like, who's?
Well, you know what I was thinking as well when we were talking about left back. There is a chance maybe that you could put Lisandro Martinez as the left back. I actually think that plugs up a hole. You might not get as much going forward, but defensively, he's one of the best defenders of the tournament, to be quite honest. So. Yeah, that might be an option, but you've offered two good segues to the other side of the bracket there.
Hang on, just to mention though, Daniel Osato is the referee.
So from Italy,
yeah. I think
you'll be happy about that.
I think he's decent from memory. Yeah, from memory, I think he's a decent ref. Hopefully, I'm proven right. Like, he's not one that I've ever really hated watching, and thought he's made any controversial decisions in the Champions League. But we'll see. We'll see.
No, I don't mind Osato, so we got a good referee for that one. And like I was saying, you offered two good segues. You obviously offered the Giroud segue, but you also offered the segue of your takes changing during a match, and you have to have a different take for different results. I went through the roller coaster in Portugal versus Morocco of not just takes, but who I wanted to go through. So I think maybe we should start with Portugal versus Morocco. What I was going to say with that one is, while you're watching the game, going into the game, I'm thinking, all right, I want the better team to go through. So, or not even the better team, but like the higher ceiling team. That's my big thing. Like, I want the chance to see a higher caliber of football in the next round. So, obviously, I'm going with Portugal. I'm not supporting them ferociously because I think Morocco have been fantastic for the tournament. And I think they're not a boring team to watch. They're not your typical underdog, like we've said before. So I go in. Portugal, I want to go through. All right, the game's pretty 50-50 for the first 40 minutes or whatever. And then En-Nesyri scores his towering header with Diego Costa, finally being punished for a mistake, unlike against Ghana, which is still one of the craziest moments of the World Cup. But yeah, that towering header, and obviously Morocco 1-0. And then the way Portugal reacted to going 1-0 down, Bruno Fernandes, that penalty shout. Oh my God. I was like, all right, now I just want Morocco to go through. Because these petulant Portuguese little princes, they're little princes to the point of the Brazilian princesses. These guys are little princes, think it's their divine right to get every decision. I just think it was disgraceful the way they carried on after going a goal down instead of using that energy. I think they did have a response, but Bruno Fernandes should just take that ball on and score, or at least get a shot away. There's nowhere near enough contact for a penalty. Absolutely nowhere near. He probably should have got booked for diving. And to think that you were right in that situation and you should have got a penalty is just farcical to me. It's an absolute joke. And then, so I'm thinking, all right, the next 15 minutes, including the start of the second half, all right, I want Morocco to go through, but Portugal are piling on the pressure around this time. Start of that second half, Portugal were battering them. And then Roman Saiss got injured. And I think everything just shifted for me. Everything just shifted from Morocco being this good team who can hold their ground with anyone and play not the same style of football in terms of possession, but play football with anyone in terms of pressing and counter-attacking and being energetic. As soon as Saiss got injured, I just thought, wow, this team's not much anymore. This Morocco team just doesn't have much to them, and I thought they were absolutely clinging on for the next 30 minutes. And fair play to them. They did cling on and they got the result. But I was just thinking, I don't think they have anything left for the semi-final. And I'm risking myself being cut up and played after the semi-final when Morocco win. But this semi-final against France has 3-0 France written all over it for me. Roman Saiz was already dead after the round of 16 against Spain. He already had his leg heavily strapped. He was more dead, and he came off in a stretcher this game. Hakim Ziyech had to come
Yeah,
off.
he comes
Mazraoui
off.
didn't start the game. Obviously, Hakimi's played every minute now. So what more? And Amrabat as well has played every minute. What more do Morocco and Nesiri always comes off after about 60 minutes. Boufal pretty much the same. I don't know what more they have to give, especially without two key players in Saiz and Hakimi in the defense. I just think they've somewhat run their course, and while I hated Portugal's antics, I would have rather seen them go through because I think they would have had more to offer in the semi-final. But I might be proven completely wrong, and they might surprise me and come out playing their normal, energetic self. But I just think this has a bridge too far written all over it for Morocco. But just to finish on Morocco, just to get to the semi-finals, be the first African nation, and I think it's a weird one because I think Morocco are more of an Arabic nation than they are an African nation. I almost think we should have a separate continent for the Middle East and the Arabic nations around there because it's for me from looking from the outside, it's a completely different way of thinking to sub-Saharan Africa, which even in appearance, everyone's different, obviously. So. Yeah, I think maybe we should be thinking of it more like that. But it is still, again, the first Arabic nation to make a semi-final in an Arabic World Cup, which is an absolutely fantastic story, one I've been here for. And the way they've done it has been really good to see, this sort of throwback athletic style as we've talked about it. But yeah, I don't know how much they have to give in this semi-final after seeing how the quarterfinal played out.
Ever since you made that Atleti point, like the more I've thought about it, I'm like, especially after this Portugal quarterfinal, I was like, Morocco probably play the best, at least for a weaker team. They play the best style of football that's suited for a tournament. You can't play this football for a league of like 34, 38 games. You can only play it for a tournament of, or even like you can play it for a Champions League because there's only 14 games, or 15 games include the final, or you can play it for a World Cup, which is 7 games if you get to the final. So, and yeah, they have that. I think they have the best method of playing football for a weaker nation because if you saw. You'd never see Brazil play that way. You sort of see glimpses of Argentina playing that way.
And just before you go on to the point, it's no surprise that we've seen those two teams playing that way, and they're probably the most heavily supported teams in the tournament still. Definitely Morocco.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But also France, at least against England, and we'll get on to France, England. They have a little bit of a tendency to play a little bit more on the defensive side, and then counter attack, but no one presses with the intensity that Morocco press with. And I've got to say, in this game, I was actually impressed with them because they actually attacked. Like I think against Spain, they barely attacked as much as what they did against Portugal, and bloody goalkeeping mistake. I don't know, like it was around the penalty spot, wasn't it? That the cross came in, so it wasn't even in the 6-yard box. Whereas if the keeper kept his line, he cleans it up very well. Like, does he have any business coming out for that ball? Like considering it's floated, it's floated in.
I don't think he has any business coming out for that ball, and I guess you can point to the defenders as well, not to get the block on Nesiri as well. But yeah, it's a really bad goal for Portugal to concede, and it's obviously the decisive one. And just to finish up your point on the style of Morocco, Morocco and Argentina are very similar, not only in that, but in the fact that I think that if you asked their players of both those teams, are you willing to die on the pitch to get the result today? Both sets of players for both Morocco and Argentina are the most likely to say yes to that question.
Yep.
Yeah, because they just play that way, and you've seen it all tournament with Morocco. So they're going to have something superhuman because, to your point, I thought the first 60 minutes of this game were actually a really good contest, really entertaining. Morocco were giving as much as they got. Probably the better team for the first 60 minutes over Portugal, although Portugal did have a big power play after conceding the goal. They really pushed hard for that equaliser. But yeah, the first 60 minutes, we got the last 30 minutes was the true underdog story, where a team just sits back and absorbs pressure, and they did it in the conventional way. And it was enough to work here, but I struggle to see how that's going to be enough to work against France.
Especially with so many players out. Because I'm just looking at team news or potential outs.
Yeah,
so you have, in terms of suspensions, there's Walid Chadira. That was the guy that got the red.
The two yellows.
But he's a substitute forward anyway.
Striker,
yeah. Players that are doubtful: Abdel Hamid, Sabiri, Hakim Ziyech, Agued, and Mazwari. But it says nothing about...
Saiss isn't on that list.
No, and it says nothing about Hakimi there either.
Oh, Hakimi's fine, but I just think he'll be a bit tired as well.
Yeah. But even so, and you know what else I want to say? Morocco are very smart with their set pieces as well. Extremely smart.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially with Ziyech, putting those direct in swingers onto the keeper, so it causes doubt, and he almost scored again. I think there was that one chance where it almost glimpsed ahead, and the Portugal keeper managed to make that instinctive save. But I've got to say, they're pretty smart in the way they play.
Absolutely. I think, and to finish on Morocco, I think the manager deserves huge credit. I know he hasn't been in the job for a long time.
Didn't he only come in 6 days before the World Cup or something, if I'm not mistaken?
I think, I don't know if it was that soon, but it was...
Or he had one game with this team, or 2 games with this team coming into the World Cup. He had no experience with them.
I think the game plan that he's come up with has been fantastic. Tactically, they've been really good. And using the crowd, they've been really good as well. So I think full credit to the manager. I didn't completely love his vindicative comments about a club like Manchester City or anything would never hire a manager like me. It's just all right, mate. So sure, they'll just get rid of Pep Guardiola to hire you. All right, come on. Let's calm down a bit. You're a good manager. There's no doubt about it. You've shown it now. You've won an African Champions League. You've shown now on the biggest stage that maybe you're ready to go to Europe. But let's just calm down a little bit, okay? Let's not bring in Manchester City into this because, what are they going to do? Get rid of Pep Guardiola? Come on, man. Let's calm down.
But even then, I just made the point earlier of, tournament football being completely different from league football. And I think we've said it before, when we've spoken, Simeone would be an excellent coach for Argentina, and we've been saying it for years now that he maybe should have taken Argentina for one of these tournaments when they weren't winning the Copa and whatnot. And Simeone has been saying that he would love to have the chance to work with Messi. He won't now, and he would have. Argentina would have benefited for a tournament with his style of football, and we see it here with Morocco.
Talk about pouring gas on the fire. Can you imagine Argentina under Simeone if they're already like this under Scaloni? Can you imagine what they'd feel like under Simeone? Oh man, that'd be crazy. But yeah, no, I don't want to take the shine off. I can never pronounce his name, Rari or whatever his name is, for the Morocco manager, because he has done a fantastic job. I just saw those comments were just a little bit too far. But I don't think we need a Brazilian-style post-mortem for Portugal, but I think we need to talk about Portugal a little bit, don't we?
A little bit, but I don't know how much there is to say in regards to this game, because...
Well, do you want to touch on...
At least Portugal tried to win this game, whereas Brazil didn't. It seemed like they weren't trying. I gotta say that in terms of the difference between the two. At least when they were 1-0 down.
Well, I think I think we talked about whether we'd see the same game as we saw Morocco-Spain. And we didn't. To Portugal's, and I got to say, to Portugal's credit and to Santos's credit, I thought they saw how Spain got beaten, and they were just like, "All right, we're gonna do different things to that." So I suggested maybe they might put more balls into the harder defense. They did. My problem was not the tactics, but the execution. Because if you're going to put balls into the heart, that's not for creating a chance off that initial ball. It's for winning the counter press and creating chances off the counter press. And I thought Bernardo Silva was way too anonymous in this game, and he should be a star if your game plan is to put balls in and then counter press on that, because he's one of the best in the world at doing that. I thought João Felix was getting beaten far too easily in the first half, where Morocco was still at least a 50-50 team. I thought Morocco made it a point of saying, we're not inferior players to Portugal. We can, if we get the ball, we can take on a man and we can beat a man, or we can interplay down the wings and beat them. And they did that a few times. They beat their man and they got territory. I think that's down to probably Bruno Fernandes and João Felix, who should be, and Bernardo Silva to a degree, should be the main players who are leading that counter press. They weren't doing it in that first 40 minutes where the game was still sort of nip and tuck. And I thought their execution of that game plan wasn't good enough. And it obviously shows when they lose a game. But yeah, I don't think it's a huge postmortem. I thought they were right to go for the tactics they went for, because they didn't want... It would be criminal to lose the game in the same way that Spain lost the game. So at least they were trying something else. But at the end of the day, their players, given their character... I think it was a character game. And the characteristics of their players... mentality and psychology, I don't like it. I don't like a Bruno Fernandes who can get caught up in refereeing bullshit, which he obviously did, and he made his comments after the game. I don't like João Felix. I never have liked his psychology, and I don't know if I ever will. He's still a young player, so he can turn it around, but the way he acts on a pitch, for me, is just not it. He's not a guy I'd trust to go into battle with, really, ever, and I think that's why Simeone sees football as a war, and that's why he doesn't trust João Felix. He wants soldiers to go into that battle with him, and João Felix isn't a soldier for me. I think there can be a balance between the two. I'm not saying Simeone is always right, but if you had to push me to ask which team I'm taking out of João Felix versus Simeone, I'm taking Diego Simeone's side every day of the week, to be quite honest. So I don't want to go too hard, because he's not the main reason they lost the game, but I'm just pointing to the character of these players. Once things got tough, they just get distracted. They get distracted by this bullshit outside of the game, and they don't focus on what they need to do. I think one thing, while I somewhat praise Santos for the game plan, I think you could somewhat criticize him for the substitutions and the timing of them. I don't think Ronaldo needed to come into the game as early as he did, because Portugal were absolutely on top at that stage. I think Bruno Fernandes had just missed that chance that he just put over the bar. And it just felt inevitable that Portugal were going to score. And then Ronaldo came in. And while Ronaldo wasn't bad, he definitely wasn't bad in this game. I didn't think he needed to change anything until that power play had run its course. He could have just let it run its course for 5-10 more minutes. And then once it sort of, if it did die down and Portugal hadn't got the equaliser, then you bring on Ronaldo. But yeah, I think they tried to win the game. And I guess before we leave this game and talk about England, France, there was just one more thing that I wanted your take on, which is obviously Ronaldo storming off the pitch, as people have called it. I just want to get your viewpoint on that, because I'm sure you've heard some reaction to that over the last couple of days.
I actually haven't, didn't even know about that.
Oh, really? Well, that's good.
Like, because they obviously cut the feed here. And they didn't show it when they went to the analysis, but yeah, I haven't seen the footage, so I can't really comment on it. I did see that there was some footage after the round of 16 win, where the Portugal players were celebrating like with their home supporters, and Ronaldo went off into the change rooms or something by himself. Apparently, well, I don't know what the story was. If you've seen that as well, then like you can't ding him for lack of consistency, because win or lose, he's gonna take himself down to the change rooms quickly.
if he hasn't had a big part in it. But what I will say is I think it's completely overblown. I think it's absolutely nonsense that people are like, oh, he couldn't even stay out on the pitch and shake the Moroccans' hands. I'm like, he's just played his last important game of a career that is one of the greatest careers of all time. He's obviously distraught. Like a lot of people saying it's crocodile tears. My instinct would be it's not crocodile tears because he knows this was the last time he's on the biggest stage in football. He knew that.
Yeah.
And to not let him have that moment where he could just go to the change room and be in solace and just take himself off and be by himself in that moment, and to say he should have stayed out there with his teammates and with the Moroccan players, like congratulating them, is absolute nonsense to me. And I've always said it, I don't mind sore losers. It means that you care. Sometimes you can question what he cares about, whether it's the right things, because he is, I perceive him to be supremely selfish. But that's got him to be one of the greatest players of all time. So to talk this nonsense about he should have stayed out and shake it, he'll shake their hands when they come up to him in the change rooms and ask him for the photo and the autograph, okay? Like, he doesn't need to do that. He's just had a fantastic career. This is his last big moment. He couldn't come through. Let him have that moment where he goes off and he's by himself. Like, there's no need to pile on there. I just think it's absolute bollocks that you're talking this kind of shit. And I just think it means you don't really know what it is to be a proper competitor, because proper competitors, I think, yeah, there's a better way of dealing with it. You can deal with it maybe better than that, but at the same time, proper competitors would know how much it hurts, especially given everything around it as well, that this is his last big moment. So, yeah, there's absolutely no complaints from me for the way he acted there, and I've just heard some stupid crap be talked about that, which, yeah.
But in regards to, like, our perception of him, like, I've seen... You've heard stories of him doing things for charities and doing things for kids and, you know, things for his family and stuff like that. Also, his sister is she shouldn't really comment.
Family members getting involved.
She should stay out of it. Like she probably she makes it a little bit worse. But like in regards to Ronaldo, I watched that interview with Piers Morgan, and I did also watch that series or that Netflix show with not his wife but his girlfriend, and like it shows a little bit of him, and he seems extremely grounded and committed, and like I think he spoke about how, you know, he can't even go anywhere with his kids. Like, he can't go to theme parks with his kids and stuff because, like, he's surrounded by, like, not just adults but also other kids as well, so he can't have moments with his kids. So, like, you also have to look at it from the other perspective that, like, he can't do normal everyday things with his partner and with his kids, that, you know, so he can't go down to the restaurant, he can't go to theme parks, he can't go to the movies with his kids, but he still seems like a very grounded and nice person at heart, and he doesn't seem like a dickhead or a wanker or anything like that. So in regards to this, I'm fully on board with your point that, you know, it's his last World Cup game ever, and people obviously deal with grief differently, and, you know, he maybe after the game, and what they're not reporting is that he went to the Moroccan change room and shook all their hands. Maybe that's something that they're not reporting that he actually did do, or maybe he sent them like a congratulatory message or letter or something like that, in private.
And also my last point on this is, for me, it's the responsibility of the winners to go and be gracious and shake the hands of the losers if that's what they want to do. It's not up to the losers. The losers are dealing with enough, especially in a high-stakes game like this, of losing the game. It's not up to them to go up to the winners and shake their hands. For me, it never is.
Yeah.
Did you see
Perisic's son go up to Neymar and console him?
Yeah, I did see
that.
But to be fair, Perisic himself was very quick to console the Brazilians as well.
Yeah, like,
so I thought that was a touch of class.
Yeah, like,
and obviously Modric and Casemiro, that nice moment at the end of the game as well.
Yeah, like I think that's like, because some of these players have played together, or a lot of these players have played against each other at the very least, and there was nothing but respect between the two teams, which we won't get in Croatia, Argentina. But just before we do move on to France, England, I did want to ask: was the omissions of Cancelo and Leao from the starting 11? Do you think that was a little bit egregious, especially Leao? I felt like he was a player that would have suited this style of game.
Well, yeah, we're gonna touch on that when we do the semi-final preview from this side. But Leao, we've already talked about that. I think it's a tricky one because he has the potential to be such a super sub with his attributes. But at the same time, in this game, Morocco, if you get to the point where you need to put Leao on at the end of the game, Morocco are going to be sitting back anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're 1-0 up, then Leao becomes the super sub who can finish the game. But yeah, I think he's immensely talented. Probably could have got the start in this game because to the point of Portugal doing things differently to Spain, that's one thing they didn't do differently because I thought Spain probably should have started Nico Williams. And I think Portugal could have started Rafael Leao in this game, who was an upgrade even on Nico Williams. So yeah, I think that one, in hindsight, you can turn around, but you still understand why Santos liked keeping him on the bench as that super sub. Cancelo, the thing I'd say about Cancelo, he was fine to omit him because of how well the round of 16 game went. But when he did bring him on, he brought him on the left, and it just closed up the pitch even more against a Morocco side who wanted the pitch to be closed. So I think maybe the position that he brought Cancelo on, you can question, especially because if you ask me who I want still on the pitch, Guerrero or Dallo, I'd pick Guerrero over Dallo because I think he can create more. So why not just bring João Cancelo on at the right-hand side and open up the pitch a bit more as well? So yeah, you can question those things. I don't necessarily question them not being in the team though.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like, well, it's easy to talk in hindsight, but I just felt like this game would have been perfect for a Leao because he is that quick, dynamic player, and he would press the Moroccans the way the Moroccans press the Portuguese. So he would sort of fight fire with fire in a sense.
Press. Yeah, not press in terms of off the ball because Leao's not a hard worker, but he could press them in terms of the pressure he puts on them with the ball. And with
exactly.
His pace, and we'll touch on matchups in this semi-final because if you're talking about dynamic pressing players on the left wing, then their semi-final opponents, they might have one.
But we still need to go into France, England. So
yeah, we do. No, you go first. I went first on the last match, so I'm interested to get your.
I don't know where to really start
your thoughts on what I thought might be the best game of the tournament. Didn't really pan out. But it wasn't a bad match.
But it was still a very good game to watch. And I was surprised to see England not get at France more. Like they were, but then they offered no solutions to because France's. I guess the way they set up their shape, they were happy for England's centre backs to get the ball, and when Bellingham or Rice did get the ball, they usually got them between the centre backs when they were trying to build up as well, which they're no threat there. And Stones and Maguire aren't really the types of centre backs to really hit those cross-field passes, or at least France were happy for them to try and hit Saka or Foden on the wings, and a lot of the times the passes didn't reach the target, or they were overpassed, or they were misplaced. But overall, it was a pretty fun game. As a neutral, it was a fun game to watch. Tukameni, moment of brilliance with that shot. It looked like it was very cleanly struck as well. Like the ball had no backlift on it. Like it just went through the air.
Yeah, it had no curl. It was sort of just like traveling.
Yeah. So great goal to kick things off, and I guess made England actually have to start to play a little bit more offensive. In regards to the penalty, 100% Saka penalty, like no questions about that. Then what? The Giroud goal, the Fiat pops up once again. But like, but before that goal, do you feel like England were on the ascendancy?
England, for me, in the game, I thought France had that chance with Giroud before he actually scored. So the momentum shifted just enough for France to get that goal. But for me, England were, I must say, England were comfortably the better team for me
Yeah,
in
it
this
felt like they
game.
were comfortable.
I,
Yeah,
I thought, I must say, France were hugely disappointing. And I've made it no secret that I'm supporting a French victory in this World Cup. But there were moments in that second half where England were not putting them under immense pressure, but they were clearly the better team. And France in the second half started like early in the second half, they were just passing balls out of play. And I was sort of in disbelief at the TV, and I was like yelling at the TV, like, this is the world champions? These are the world champions. The team that plays like this. And I was bitterly disappointed in the French, I must say. Now, I thought they were hugely disappointed. I will take a little victory lap because everyone was focusing on Kyle Walker versus Kylian Mbappe, but I know it didn't affect the result in the end, but it was definitely the Bukayo Saka versus Theo Hernandez battle that was much more impactful on this game because I thought Bukayo Saka easily won that battle. And it pains me to say it because you know Theo Hernandez is my boy, but he had a very bad game in this game. He kind of looked like, I don't know if Deschamps is putting the chains on him and putting the muzzle on him in terms of the attacking sense, but he didn't look like he didn't look like he knew whether he was coming or going. It looked like he was like, oh, I can't really get forward. And then when he was asked to defend, he's not a great defender anyway. So, like, just didn't see the point. Like, just unchain him. Just let him go forward. Just let him link up with Mbappe. Let him overlap. Let him do all of that stuff. Trust Rabiot to cover. Because, honestly, in this game, Rabiot would have done a better job on Saka anyway, to be quite honest. Because, yeah, Theo was terrible. Also, for the Tchouaméni goal, it's a definite foul on Bukayo Saka on the touchline, and it should have been given. So France shouldn't have even had a goal there. Harry Kane, we never got the right angle to see whether he was in the line or in the box or not.
If you look where his feet weren't on the line at all. And like
Yeah,
they don't take your body. So if your head and shoulders are, they don't take that, do they? Your feet have to be touching the line.
But what they do say as well is it's not initial contact. It's like the carryover where the contact ends is where the foul will be given. So
hang on, you're frozen. Oh no!
Am I back?
You're back. So you said when the contact ends. No, you're frozen again. No, we've lost him. Folks, we are having some technical difficulties.
God.
Hang on, are you back? No, you're not.
You got me?
All right, hang on.
Am I back? I'm not back?
Yep, you're back. You're back.
Oh, geez, that's weird. I was having no problems on this side, so... All right, anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, it's where the contact finishes, so it would have been interesting to get that overhead and see where it was. But, like, I don't think you can have too many complaints because it probably... Oh, you can't complain that the referee didn't even give a free kick. What's he even thinking there? Yeah, and the linesman. How can you not see that? That's right there.
The linesman, yes.
But yeah,
just on that point, and just on that point, one of the pundits here has said that, like, ever since VAR was, especially for this World Cup, it seems that linesmen have been they've taken away some of they've taken away some of the responsibility instead of helping the ref with those decisions, like in the corners and along the sidelines. They're just like, oh, we'll leave it and let VAR deal with it instead of, like, for that one, 100% the linesman should have said, look, this is a foul, man.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I always have a problem with lines, but sometimes I hate it when they give too many decisions. But in that case, when you can clearly see it, yeah, intervene. But yeah, I thought the refereeing was clearly the most impactful in this game out of all the quarterfinals. I thought it was pretty poor refereeing. And he should not get another game in this World Cup. And I think England have every right. I'm not really a big ref guy. And as I said, I was in favour of France winning this game, but yeah, I think England could have every right to feel aggrieved by the refereeing performance. And obviously, I've taken my issues with some of Gary Neville's comments in the past, but he hit the nail on the head about saying that the referee had a shocker in this. I know you could take it with a pinch of salt because he's English, but yeah, the referee impacted this game for me because, yeah, that first goal in particular just shouldn't happen because there should have been a foul ages ago.
Yeah, but how far back does VAR
no, you
bring
can't.
it?
VAR can't bring that back, and they're right not to bring it back for that. But what I'm saying is the ref is wrong to not even give that. And again, the linesman is right there. How can no one see that? It's ridiculous. So I think France, and when we go and touch on the semi-final, I don't know how much more there is to touch on the game because I thought, like I said, England were the better team, and I just thought it was a game they lost, and that can happen in football. So there's no need for a big post-mortem for England. There's been enough talk around England, obviously, because I listen to a lot of those English podcasts as well. But there's been enough talk around them. There's no need for a post-mortem in terms of England. This was probably their best knockout stage or even best tournament performance under Southgate. Because you look at the teams they've beaten in previous tournaments, they've had easy runs in the last Euros and the last World Cup. And then when they play a team like Croatia, they lose, who are a very good team. So, no, I'm saying when they play a team like Croatia, who are a good team, they do lose compared to playing a Denmark or a I don't know who they play in the quarters, a Sweden or whoever the hell they've played in previous tournaments. That's what I'm saying. I'm using you guys to make my point. But in this game, I thought they easily could have won it. They probably should have won it. They were unlucky not to win it. No blame on Harry Kane. It's really hard to take a second penalty. Well, a little bit of blame. You can hit the target.
Well, you know what? I was thinking with the second one, especially after the first one.
Go down the middle.
Yeah, I was thinking go down the middle with power.
Yeah. I was thinking not power, but you know that little where he side foots it and he makes it look like he's going for a quarter, but it's sort of like a dink, but not a dink into the middle.
Yeah.
I thought he'd do that one.
I was thinking just power down the middle. Sort of like with how Ziyech hit his in the penalty shootout. Yeah.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, Lloris dived to his left. You went to your left, so his right. So now there's a little bit of like fuckery with like, do you go left? Do you go right? Just go down the middle. And he actually, if you look at the path of the ball, he actually tried going down the middle with power, but it was too much power.
A little bit too much power.
A little bit too much. Was that a penalty for you though on Mount?
It wasn't as nailed on as everyone is saying, but Theo Hernandez gave the referee a decision to make, which is criminal.
It was stupid.
In that position. Because he's not getting the ball. But
and even if he is, even if he is,
exactly.
He's not doing anything with it. It's going to bounce like 5 meters off his chest. Yeah.
But I could have gone along with the ref not giving it in the instance, but it was just, like we keep saying, it was stupid to do that in that situation. So if you get punished for it, you've only got yourself to blame. But yeah, I think England can feel aggrieved for the referee and for their performance. I thought they were the better team. It was disappointing to see them go out. But you can only get one winner from a game like this. This was definitely worthy of a semi or even a final. I thought these teams were good enough to be at that stage. And France, and this is why I go into France-Morocco, feels like a 3-0 to me. France must be leaving that game. I would hope that they're leaving that game feeling like they are like a big sigh of relief and that they know that they have to be better for the rest of this tournament to win it. And we'll see that in the Morocco game. I have a feeling that that's how they'll be feeling and that they'll probably show that against Morocco as well.
Just a question in regards to the substitutes. Like you had Grealish coming on in like the 98th or 96th minute. So you only got like 2 minutes. Saka coming off after he's probably one of your best players.
Yeah.
Like, what's your take on the subs when they were made? Were they the right calls and whatnot? Because I'm just trying to bring up the timeline here to see when.
Saka's the criminal one for me. That falls under the Vinny category. Your best player in the match, the player who's having the most advantage in his individual matchup, and you take him off after 60, 65 minutes. That's not it for me. Just unless he's dying, keep him on the pitch.
79 minutes actually.
Oh, 79. It didn't feel like that at all. but
even then, it's 2-1.
Yeah, keep him on.
Yeah, or is it 1-1? When did Giroud score? In the 78th. Yeah, so right after that goal, he brought him off. So it's like you're down 2-1. Saka's arguably one of your best attacking players. He won you the penalty as well. Keep him on.
Yeah.
That was a
And
strange
one thing
one.
I will say, while we're criticizing Southgate for making that change, I think the tactical tweak he made in half time in terms of stop getting Henderson to overlap Saka, I thought it was the right move, because every time Henderson overlapped Saka, Saka would just be passed on to Rabiot, and Theo Hernandez would only have to deal with Henderson. Whereas in the second half, it was like, Hendo, just stay back, let Saka go 1v1 against Theo Hernandez, and they got a penalty from it in the end because he plays that 1-2 past him, and he was exploiting him all over. And I don't know if you're one of those Arsenal fans who fits the category, but I know a lot of Arsenal fans have been calling for Saka to get more protection from referees. He got absolutely nothing from the referees in this game. He was getting
I've been seeing it
all game.
I've been seeing it in the last, more so this season than last, but it has carried over since last season. He gets fouled a lot, and it's not called at all. It's not called. Regardless of whether it's a lot of these challenges should be yellows as well, and early yellows, so you set the tone, and nothing's given. So I agree that they need, and he's not a player that has a reputation for diving like a Bruno Fernandes or a young Ronaldo, or trying to think who else, or a Luis Suarez or something like that. He doesn't dive. He doesn't have that reputation, and he still gets no protection. I
know it feels very unfair on
it's strange though, because all that's going to happen is that his career is going to get cut short. Eventually, there's going to be a horror tackle, and that's going to be the end of his career.
Well, let's pray that doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen. But he
has the potential to be a very, very good footballer in the coming years. He already is a very good footballer.
Yeah.
So his performances through the tournament were absolutely wonderful. I thought for England, maybe their second best attacking player, probably their second best attacking player, in fact.
Well, who would be their first? Bellingham, maybe.
I'd still go for Harry Kane, but maybe that's a bit of reputation.
Kane that was another thing. Especially when you're 1-0 down, why is Kane? I know people will say, oh, that's part of his game, to drop into the midfield and pick up the ball, and then let the wingers sort of invert and come inside and pick up that space that he left in behind. But be the focal point, especially in a game like this, a big game. And I think there was one or two chances, especially one chance in the first half where he turned. Was it Varane or no Upamecano?
It was Upamecano. Yeah, it's always Upamecano. Don't
he skinned him in like a banana. And then if that was maybe a year or two younger Kane with 1 or 2% more speed, but he got to the ball still. But he the dink was a little bit. It was a weird one. He didn't try to chip it. He didn't try to chip it. But he tried to side foot chip it. If he just went for the toe chip, he would have got enough lift over it to
but the problem was, I think there was Varane on the cover. So I think Harry Kane's intelligent enough that he didn't want to just go the dink because he knew it would have been cleared. He just didn't get enough elevation. Lloris got there just in time.
Yeah, but even so,
I don't think you can fault him for that.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, maybe if he was a year or two younger, he would have had a little bit more speed, so he would have been able to get to the ball quicker. Yeah, and take the shot
what
quicker.
I thought Tottenham Harry Kane against Liverpool scores that every day of the week. He just
or against Arsenal.
Chance he gets against it. Yeah.
No, Tottenham Harry Kane against Arsenal scores that second penalty.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But yeah, dude. To my point, just be the focal point, especially in these big games. Score. Be selfish. Score that hat trick.
He'll be the focal point for the wrong reasons after that penalty.
Yeah, as an Arsenal fan, fortunately.
Taking the view of AFTV on that one.
Nah, look, I don't put any blame for him for missing that penalty at all. It happens
if you put yourself in that position.
I think
might happen.
Modric missed the penalty against Denmark in It was either to make it 1-0 for us. No, because Denmark scored really early. I think that might have been to make it 2-1 for us. Or in one of those games in 2018 World Cup, he missed a penalty where we would have taken the lead or equalised. And then he also missed in the... He missed one of them in the either against Russia or Denmark in the actual penalty shootout as well. So it happens, man. Like even to the captain.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think we've touched on this game. I don't think there was that much tactical to see. I think it was a real big matchups game, and we saw it bear out that way. I think if Morocco have anything left, they would have seen the left hand. They would have seen the left-hand side of that French defense, and they must be licking their lips if Upamecano starts again and Theo Hernandez decides to be defensive. Hernandez.
To be Lucas Hernandez.
Yes. to be fair to even Lucas, he can defend better than that. But yeah, he was not at it. But another reason I say, on top of the reason of Morocco being dead and the French maybe being relieved and understanding that they need to be better to go on and win this tournament, the third and final reason why I think this game has maybe France comfortably winning it written all over it is because I think the French, to your point before, the French match up a lot better against Morocco because I think what we've seen in Spain and Portugal matching up against Morocco is two teams who want to go straight down the middle and they want to go through the heart of your midfield to create chances, whereas the French are much more wing dependent. And I think obviously when you play against a compact defence, generally you find your space on the wings. And I think France will find more space on the wings. I think that left-hand side, again, for the French, not so much defensively for Theo this time, but attacking-wise. And a little bit defensively if Ziyech is starting and fit enough to start. But they're going to have to exploit the wings and then get delivery into Giroud, who's been very good for the French, obviously popping up with the winner here, and he's always a presence in the box. So, yeah, I think the French have better options in terms of exploiting Morocco. I know Morocco have been defending the box unbelievably well this tournament, but by the same token, Spain definitely didn't offer anything like a Giroud up front. Portugal definitely didn't offer anything like a Giroud up front. So I just think France have the weapons, France have the know-how, and Morocco have the injuries, and this just screams to me a bridge too far for Morocco. This is, for me, and I kind of hope it does as well. I kind of hope their journey ends here. I don't really want to see a beaten up Morocco in the final. But if they are to get past France, I mean, you can't argue that they're worthy finalists. That must be one of the toughest runs to a World Cup final ever, to be fair. Spain, Portugal, France. So if they do get there, they're worthy finalists. But yeah, I just... and another thing as well, I hate to say it to you, but I don't really want to see a France-Croatia final again, I must admit. I'd rather see the narrative of the old guard versus the new guard, the Messi, Mbappe, and the France-Argentina battle. But I'm not completely ruling out Morocco, although I think I give them probably the lowest chance I'd give. If Croatia were a really low chance in the quarterfinals, I think Morocco are at least that bad, maybe even less. I might even give Morocco less of a chance against France. But Croatia-Argentina is much of a pick'em for me.
I think it's more to do with Morocco's potential injuries or potential outs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like with so
That's
many,
the biggest one.
Yeah, with so many starters, like either not 100% or doubtful or whatnot. Yeah, that's the one. Like it's just there's too many bruised and battered bodies. It seems like, and that's what this style of football does to a team. Like it depletes it quicker than a different style. But that's why it's only good for tournament football, really. For like these 7 games or so. I don't know. It's a part of me doesn't want Morocco through to the final, but another part of me is like it would be that sort of Leicester style Cinderella story.
Yeah,
and it's not exactly like they play they play a lot more exciting football than Greece in 2004. So it's not a Greece 2004 moment. It's more an Atletico 2006, 15?
14?
14.
When they won the league, are you going for? And made the Champions League final?
Yeah, it's more of that where like they still attack enough to not be considered completely like defensive and boring and whatnot. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if France can actually break them down, because like you said, they have the weapons to break them down, especially with Dembele and Mbappe on the wings, and they have Giroud up front as well. So I think in terms of the front options, they're a lot. So like with Giroud, I was going to say they're a lot more quicker and dynamic, but Giroud isn't quick and dynamic. But like Dembele and Mbappe are a lot quicker than what Ferran Torres or Asensio and who was the other winger for Spain?
Olmo.
Yeah, Olmo. They're a completely different package to what they offered. Also with Portugal have no wingers. Completely different package
to what Leao, who comes on late.
Yeah, who comes on late. Exactly. And he actually caused some questions. He asked some questions. So, and then also, none of them have a Giroud type figure up front. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it. And I don't think they obviously didn't face anything like that with Croatia or Canada or Belgium. They might have faced a Giroud type forward if Lukaku played, but I think he only maybe got like 10 minutes or something. He didn't get the full game.
Yeah.
So they haven't really gotten this type of test yet, and they would have actually gotten a similar test with England. So England, either of these teams that went through with England, France, both of them would have had similar tools to beat Morocco that neither Portugal nor Spain offered in their matchups. So I would have favoured either England as well to beat Morocco.
Yeah. No, I actually, as we saw from the game, I actually thought England probably just have a better team all up than France, to be quite honest, because the midfield's a non-comparable. Like, the English midfield's just so much better for me than this French midfield. I know they're missing players, but yeah, France have been really underwhelming, and that might bode well for them because this just might be the game that gives them a bit of confidence. One thing we can't just sort of, I think my last point on this game is, while Morocco will be really tired, obviously playing all 120 in penalties against Spain and then a really tough game against Portugal, France haven't had the luxury of rotating the squad too much. I know they rotated for the last group stage game, but obviously that B team is terrible when you have to, and France just don't have options off the bench. They just don't really have any game changers. So it's going to have to be the 11 that starts that does the business, I'd say. The only players I can think of really is Kingsley Coman, who's come on a few times, and maybe Kolo Muani from Frankfurt. But even then, man, I don't know. This French team, it's very much, it has to be the starting 11. So if Morocco takes something out of them in this game, which England already did last game, France will be coming into the final quite tired. But I guess Argentina maybe have a few options. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm talking about the final. I don't need to talk about the final. I don't know who's going to be there. I have a good feeling that France will be there, but I can't. And I think it'll be Argentina, but I'm not sure about that side of the draw. And I guess that's my final point, yeah.
I'm curious to see how similar... I know it's a different team to 2018 Argentina, but I'm curious to see how similar it is in terms of tactics to that game, because that might give a little bit of insight into how things will go, because we have faced a Messi-type Argentina. But this, we've mentioned it before, this Argentina isn't as reliant on Messi as what it has been in the past. So... Yeah,
this for me is a completely different team to 2018.
But they still have in this Netherlands game, they had a little bit of reliance. They didn't exactly revert to old, but they had a little bit of reliance on him. But it was more so Messi probably showing up than them relying on him. It was more him taking the game.
I think you could maybe describe it as healthy reliance, because any team has to be pretty reliant on their best player.
Yeah.
So, but it's not unhealthy.
It's not an over reliance.
Messi do everything. Yeah.
But I can still see the the passing lanes being cut off to him the same way that it was in 2018 with the midfield three.
In the Croatia game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but the problem is, if Croatia do opt to do that, I think they're going to have to inherently sit a little bit deeper, and that doesn't help them in terms of controlling the game, because I think what Argentina have added, and we've seen it during this tournament, I think they have a little bit of a counter press. It's not like the best, it's not like a Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp counter press, but in terms of international standards, I think if they do push a team back, they can pen them back for some sort of periods. And
Yeah, but
that obviously, I don't think that helps Croatia particularly if they do get penned back.
I don't want to jinx anything, but out of all the teams, and that's including Spain, Croatia are probably one of the best that at least they've shown that they're one of the best to play out from the back and avoid that counter press.
Yeah, maybe. But my only problem is I guess Perisic is a little bit quick, but what's the pace that worries you when you push up the pitch if you're Argentina? And what's the attacker that worries you? Because even if Perisic does worry you, like, does he worry you in front of goals? Well, he hasn't shown it this tournament. So, yeah, I think that's just why I fancy Argentina. But like I said, 60-40 is the best I give them. So you guys have a big chance to get through this. And obviously the point we haven't touched on is how tired Croatia are going into this game. But those three midfielders, especially for Croatia, but Modric and Brozovic are somewhat indestructible anyway, but Kovacic sort of just becomes indestructible for some reason when he plays for Croatia. But when he goes back to club, he's injured every second week, apparently.
But it's sort of like Lovren as well. Like Croatia Lovren is different to Liverpool Lovren. Like, you never really rated him for Liverpool, whereas like for Croatia, like he just becomes a completely different beast. I think that's what a lot of these players become, like different animals compared to club.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and it's amazing what they're doing the last two World Cups, and tomorrow morning, I guess we'll see. Does it go on for
tomorrow morning?
Well, it will go on for one more for us, isn't it? Wednesday morning? I thought it was Wednesday morning.
Well, yeah, I guess yeah. Tomorrow morning for you. I don't know, maybe because I'm thinking morning for me, which is not right. So I think it's in about 20 hours kickoff. It will occur.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 2 back-to-back World Cups for Croatia where they're going to play every game possible. Let's just see if it's the one for the trophy itself or just that third-place medal.
Fingers crossed they go one better compared to 4 years ago and they get the gold this time.
We shall see.
Anyway, Caleb, we will catch up after the semis. Let's see who's... I can't wait to see who's going to be in the final because, like, overall, it's actually been a really good World Cup. It's actually been a really good one.
This is the best World Cup we've had since 2006, comfortably.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on that after everything's concluded.
Yeah, because
the semi-finals and the third place. No one really watched the third place too much, but the third place and the final could actually ruin how good it's been so far. Hopefully not.
Oh, they normally do, to be fair. Semis, you can get some good ones. I was watching Germany against Italy from 2006. That was a ripping 0-0 until the 119th minute. But yeah, a lot of these tournaments can, especially in the final, they can somewhat peter out and be a little bit dull in the final. But I don't think that should take the shine off how good the rest of the tournament's been.
Yeah, but let's see how things go. Hopefully Croatia gets the dub. No hard feelings, Nico and Matti, but got to do what you got to do. Caleb, it's been a pleasure. To everyone watching, listening, make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends and your enemies. And thanks for coming, and bye for now.